Welcome back to Big Little Lessons. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Kristine.
And this summer, we're revisiting a few conversations that have stayed with us. Episodes that have especially been meaningful as we move through different seasons and transitions.
So today we're returning to a conversation with Lisa Konstandt, one of my old childhood friends, my BFF, about finding flexibility and building resilience through change.
And we're so happy that Lisa is joining us again for a short summer check-in before we replay our original conversation.
Lisa, welcome back to Big Little Lessons.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be back.
So Lisa, when we first spoke with you, we explored flexibility as much as more than simply being willing to change plans. You helped us think about flexibility as a skill. It allowed us to respond, adjust, and move forward when life doesn't unfold exactly as expected. As you think back on that conversation, is there an idea or message that still feels especially important to you?
Yes. The idea that things might not go as expected is something that I think about a lot. And I think as adults, it's important to think about that just as how that affects us, not just how it affects children. I think that in almost everything we do in life, it's hard to not have expectations that are based on your past experiences. And I think sometimes when you have those expectations, they can cause us to become rigid in our thinking and our ability to accept when things go differently than our expectations.
Yeah, it's true. Do you think your understanding of flexibility has changed or deepened just since we last spoke?
I think it has, just because I'm currently looking at flexibility more in terms of my personal experiences and my emotions. And I'm looking at flexibility as the ability to accept different states of emotion that I may experience, if that makes sense. And also just having the flexibility to accept that some things in my life didn't go as planned. For example, over the past 6 years, I lost my brother and my mother. And I never in my wildest dreams imagined life without them, but here I am. And I have to be flexible every day when I think about them not being around anymore, because it's not anywhere near what I expected my life was going to be like.
Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry to hear that, Lisa.
Thank you.
That's huge. That's so big.
Yeah.
That's so big.
Yeah. And it's something that I'm sure you're still processing. It's not like it goes away. Oh,
exactly.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when we think about flexibility, we might not think about those major, big, giant emotional things that.
Right. Like being flexible with loss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like everyone experiences loss, but when you experience loss, you do have to be flexible in order to get through it.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes a long time. It's not, okay, do these 5 steps and you're all better. It comes in waves.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, Lisa, we're wondering, why do you think it is difficult for people to move from being very busy, like say a school year, into a slower, less structured season, such as summer?
Well, I think that's a great question. And I've been asking myself this question a lot this past month, because the transition into summer for me this year was very different than in past years. I think because I had a particularly challenging school year, my cortisol levels were at an all-time high, and I couldn't flip a switch into summer and relax. I needed to decompress before I was able to relax. And I hadn't experienced this to this level before. So I needed to be very flexible with myself and give myself the time and experiences I needed to go through that decompression. And for me, now that I've decompressed, I'm good with not having a schedule. and I'm good with allowing myself to do things at different times over the summer months than during the school year. But for kids, I think particularly neurodivergent kids, schedule changes are very hard. So this seemingly wonderful time of summer can feel daunting for neurodivergent kids and their families. So, what can people do? You can make a summer schedule for your kid. And just like they learned their school year schedule, they'll learn their summer schedule. You can use visuals. You can refer to the schedule during their meltdowns and just put some type of structure into place, because the brain likes structure and routine, and it's a natural energy saving mechanism. So when you have predictable habits, the brain can go into autopilot and conserve cognitive energy for more demanding tasks. So knowing what to expect triggers the release of neurotransmitters that are associated with safety. This calms the nervous system. And when you take away that structure and routine from the school year and shift into summer mode, your brain is struggling with the drastic shift, and it creates a neurological incongruity that feels more like stress than relaxation. So that's like the like hormonal side of why it's so hard to relax shifting into summer. It really does have a lot to do with hormones and cortisol levels and adrenaline and that drop. And a lot of times we don't think about it in that way, but it is like a medical thing that's going on.
I get that so clearly. And I think it's interesting because I feel like transitioning in and out of summer, from one year to the next could look totally different. Mm-hmm. It's true. And I'm sure that's the same way for children as in their developmental stage. Mm-hmm. But for me, I totally relate to that because so type A person with lists and schedules and I find myself, Jenny and I have these amazing, these amazing plan books, calendar books. And, but I find myself even making lists off that calendar, so that calms me down because without it, I feel like I'm in that state of anxiety that you talked about.
Yeah. You're floating.
Imagine
floating around and you have nothing to anchor you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a great way of saying it, to anchor you.
To anchor us. And we do like to write in pencil. My daughter, Gracie, was making fun of us, Kristine. She's like, nobody writes in pencils. I'm like, all teachers write in pencils because plans change all the time. Yeah. So let's hear it for number 2, pencils.
Yeah, I know. I think actually that's a good way to think about it too. When you're making expectations for yourself, make them in pencil in your mind. I
like that.
Make them.
I like it
because they may have to be erased.
Yeah, and envision a very, very big, chunky eraser that. So it's like you make a plan, hold it loosely because it's probably going to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
There's so many expectations in summer, right? We really want to fill our cups. So it does carry expectations because regardless, it's a time when people have vacations. It's a time when people want to spend time with family and see friends. And they think, oh, it's summertime. I'll exercise. I'll go to the beach. I'll read more. And you're putting all these expectations on. I want to enjoy every moment in the summer. The weather is beautiful. I want to enjoy it. But what happens when we enter a season like this with a specific picture of how it's supposed to look?
Yeah, it's hard. Good. I mean, because those are expectations. And with expectations, you can experience guilt and stress if the expectations aren't achieved. So I think just be aware of managing your expectations and be flexible with yourself when your expectations don't all get met. And this is a new idea of thinking in pencil. I like this idea of thinking in pencil because I think that we just put too much on our plates, and then we set ourselves up to feel like failures when we don't achieve what we put on our plates.
I agree.
Yeah. The thought just came to me that it's similar to making New Year's resolutions. And it's similar to that whole time on New Year's Eve where you're like making all these resolutions and it's a new year and it's a clean slate and you're going to do this and this and this and this. And then it's the same thing you do as a teacher when you go into summer. Oh, I have all this time and I'm going to clean out the garage and I'm going to get this room organized and I'm going to do this and this and this. And then if those things don't happen, same as with New Year's Eve, if the things that you say are going to happen don't happen, you experience that same like guilt and stress and feeling like a failure.
I know. I'm just thinking, what if we made our expectation no expectations? I will not clean out one thing this summer. I will not. Then I'm like, I'm a winner.
Yeah.
I got nothing done. Mm-hmm. All right, Lisa, for someone who's listening and maybe they're struggling with change or we're in the middle of summer, approaching the school year, what is just one small practical way that they can begin practicing flexibility this summer?
So one small tool. I think that you need to, first of all, just be really kind to yourself and gentle with yourself and know that like this cortisol rush you're gonna go through a drop and just know that that's going to happen and be cognizant of that and just be realistic about your expectations.
Do you have like a phrase or a question or like a pause you recommend when plans shift? Like, what do you say? Is there something you specifically say to yourself, Lisa?
I definitely ask myself a lot, like, what do I need right now? Like, what do I need to do right now? Do I need to do some breathing? Do I need to take a walk? Do I need to go get a massage? You know, what do I need to do to kind of help me get out of this state that I'm in? And then I like a quote that I heard many, many years ago. Marianne Williamson said, if the train doesn't stop at your station, it's not your train. So I think about that all the time because it's a way to come to terms with if something doesn't go your way or a plan falls through, well, maybe that plan just wasn't meant for you at that time. That wasn't your train. It wasn't your plan.
Well said.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Before we transition to our original conversation, we want to offer listeners a few questions to carry with them. Lisa, we would love your thoughts. So what expectations for this season might we need to loosen?
Okay, just like we were just talking about, just that I'm going to do it all over the summer. I'm going to organize the entire house, the garage. I'm going to see all my friends. I'm going to relax every single day. I need to loosen those expectations and make more realistic goals.
Yeah. So where might you be invited to respond with the thought, thinking about being curious rather than control? Because to me, I feel like if I'm not in control, it's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's just trying to ask myself, how can I feel accomplished even if I do a small piece of what I set out to do and not like beat myself up because I haven't done it all.
Yeah. So just break it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how about for you, Lisa? What do you want to carry forward and what might you be ready to release?
I do want to carry forward the idea that I can find ways to relax during the school year and not wait until the summer, because I think that that also puts a lot of pressure on the summer, is when all year long you're like, I'll relax over the summer. I'll relax over the summer. I'll relax over. And then the summer comes and you're like, I have a lot of relaxing to do.
Yeah. It's like catching up on sleep. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And it just puts a lot of pressure on you. And I'm just ready to release anything that doesn't serve me right now as who I am in my life. So whether that be personal items, a habit, a feeling, I just want to let it go.
Yeah.
Yep. Good idea.
Goes back to, if the train doesn't stop at your station, it's not your train.
Mm-hmm.
So before we let you go, what's your big little lesson about finding flexibility?
I think my big little lesson is that flexibility never ends. It never stops. You'll always have to be flexible in your life in one way or another. And so we need to just make friends with flexibility and know that it's just always going to be there, whether we want to have to be flexible or not. And that will help us to get out of a place where we might feel stuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us again. And your wisdom reminds us that flexibility isn't about handling every transition perfectly.
Yeah. It's about learning to adjust, recover, but don't save it all for the summer. Stay curious and remain open when life could take an unexpected turn.
We hope that this conversation meets you exactly where you are.
And now here's our original conversation with Lisa Konstandt, called Finding Flexibility, Building Resilience Through Change.
Welcome back to Big Little Lessons. I'm Jenny, and I'm here with my longtime teaching partner and friend, Kristine. Hi, Kristine.
Hi, Jenny. Hi, everyone. Today we're talking about one of the most essential life skills for kids and adults, and that is flexibility.
When most people hear the word flexibility, they picture stretching at the gym. But there's another kind that's just as important: mental flexibility, the ability to shift your thinking when things don't go as planned.
Exactly. That's the kind of flexibility that help us navigate change, manage emotions, and build resilience. Those are skills that start in childhood but carry us through every season of life. And today, I get the joy of introducing one of my dearest and best friends in the world, Lisa Konstandt. Yay! I'm giddy right now. I'm so excited. Lisa and I go way back. We met when we were 15, and I'm thrilled to bring her into this conversation. Lisa has spent over 2 decades in education. She holds a master's degree from Bank Street College in New York City. She has worked as a lead teacher for many years in both public and private schools and is currently working in a self-contained special ed classroom. Her experience spans supporting children with autism, ADHD, learning differences, language disorders, genetic conditions, and typically developing students as well. Beyond the classroom, Lisa is a writer and the author of an amazing book, Flat as a Pancake, which is a memoir about her personal journey through breast cancer and reclaiming her voice. She is also a mom of 2 adult children, who I love as well, and lives in Westchester, New York, where she loves hiking, nature, traveling, and spending time with her dog and 3 cats. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
So, Lisa, before we jump into the meat of our conversation, you've been cancer-free for more than 10 years, more like 14 years, right?
Yes.
It's a long time.
It is a long time.
Wow. Well, I'm so happy to have you here today too, Lisa, and to meet you. I feel like I've gotten to know you because I've enjoyed your book so much, and I highly recommend Flat as a Pancake for anyone because it's such a beautifully written story, and I'm so glad you wrote the book, Lisa. So I wanted to ask you, how has cancer reshaped the way you approach your life, your time, your expectations, and control?
Well, I get that question a lot. When you've had cancer, a lot of people kind of want to know, what has it taught you? What have you learned from cancer? And I would say that the main thing that I learned was just to slow down, focus more on my own needs, not burn myself out so much trying to do everything. And it also really teaches you that some things are just not within your control, and you have to kind of pivot when your life doesn't go according to your plan or expectations.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. For all of us. But I mean, that is huge. What does that look like for you? Like, how do you focus on your own needs?
I think it starts with letting some things go, like letting the dishes stay in the sink, letting the house be a little dirtier than you might want. I think when you're a mom and you have a family and a lot is on your shoulders, you're trying to do everything and you're trying to get all the laundry done and get all the cooking done and get all the shopping done. It can just really, I think for me, focusing on my own needs looks like choosing to lie in bed and watch a show on Netflix instead of doing the dishes one night. Also, just making sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do to keep me feeling focused and centered, like meditation and exercise and things of that nature.
I think the thing that I took away the most from your book, there were so many golden moments, but I love your journey of listening to your inner voice. And I think as we all are growing and we're trying to figure out who are we in this world? What is our calling? What is our purpose? I love that you talk about your inner voice. And you really came to terms with it during your cancer treatment and recovery. Are you still able to tap into that inner voice, or do you find sometimes you're kind of pushed and pulled?
I think I'm pretty good at it now. I think that it's usually the first thing you feel or think. And I think that sometimes we tend to quickly discard that first thought. Like if someone's like, "Hey, do you want to hang out tonight?" You might have this immediate thought of like, "Oh, I really don't feel like doing that." But then then a lot goes on in your mind. "Oh, why am I thinking that? Oh, does that make me a terrible friend? Oh, maybe I should just say yes." But really, the truth is that very first thought is your inner voice telling you what you really want to do. So I do really try to stay true to listening to that.
It's such a good practice. It's so important. And I've been thinking a lot about it, when we were talking about your book, just the times in my life when I didn't listen to my inner voice, and just learning from that and thinking, I should have listened to my voice. I should have listened to my voice. And it's a reminder to all of us that we all have that inner voice.
Yeah. When you're thinking about working with students, a lot of times in our age group with kindergarten, they do listen to their inner voice.
Yeah, a little too much.
What's that inner voice saying right now? Like, much, but it is interesting. Anyway, again, it was such a great takeaway for me is discovering your inner voice and honoring it.
Would you mind sharing a little bit about the writing process of the book, how it came to be for you? Because you're such a great writer. I know that's what you studied when you were in college, and you've been writing for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I have been writing for a long time. I mean, the whole idea for the book came obviously when I got diagnosed and I was trying to make this decision. I knew that I was going to have a bilateral mastectomy, but I really wasn't sure whether I was going to do reconstruction or not do reconstruction and what options were available to me. And I did what I kind of do with most things in my life, is I said, let me go research this and let me see what other people have done, what other people's journeys have been. And I went to Barnes and Noble to try to find a book about not doing reconstruction because I was sort of leaning in that direction and I couldn't find anything. There was not one book that was written about it. It was in that moment I stood in Barnes and Noble and I said, I'm going to write this book because I don't want there to have to be another woman who is coming into Barnes and Noble and can't find a book. And that was 14 years ago. Now there are a lot of books out there about it. But so the thought for it started kind of germinating at that point. And then the process is a lot of jotting things down on paper. I was sharing with you earlier, it took me a long time to write this book. It took me about 7 years because I am not a typically disciplined writer. I tend to write when I get bursts of inspiration, and those bursts of inspiration they don't come every day. And I don't really like to force it. So it took me a really long time to write it. And I also, the story of the inner voice kind of emerged during the writing. So I kind of had this question of why the decision to not reconstruct was a decision that I made totally on my own. And I didn't talk to anyone about it other than the doctor. I didn't get anyone's opinion about it. And I realized in that moment that that was very different for me because I had spent my whole life really relying on other people's opinions and really relying on other people's advice. And so my question was, why was I able to do this now? And that was a lot of the process. And just working with a couple different editors, and it took a long time, but I'm happy with it. I have gotten a lot of positive feedback from other women who the book has really helped them make their decision. So that was my whole goal.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing about that. If you could summarize this book's message in one kind of overarching lesson, what would you describe it as being?
I mean, it really would just be to listen to your gut, listen to your inner voice. There's going to be a lot of people trying to convince you to do things that they think are the right things for you. And when you're in a position, when you're making a decision, like whether or not to do reconstruction, you're making a decision about something that you have no idea. There's no way to know if you will be 100% okay with with your decision. You can't know it until after you've already made the decision. So, I think the message of the book is kind of listen to your inner voice and know that you can decide that you're going to be okay ahead of time. You make it work afterwards. And you realize that it's not going to be perfect and you're going to have days where you're sad about it and upset about it, but you just move on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And here you are 14 years later, and you're doing this amazing work with these incredible people, these young people in a self-contained classroom. Do you feel that this journey that you were on, this journey, and then you wrote the book of cancer, do you think that has helped you to lean into the work that you're currently doing with students?
I think that it has, in the sense that, I had to be flexible in my idea of what I thought my life was going to look like. You never think that your body is going to be dramatically changed during your lifetime, and you're going to have to live with a totally kind of altered body than you thought you were going to have to. So that requires flexibility. And just in terms of honoring flexibility, just what flexibility is and how important flexibility is to everyone. Yes, I think that knowing how important it is to be flexible helps me when I'm teaching these kids about flexibility.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Lisa. So today we're going to dive into flexibility, and let's explore what is flexibility, why does flexibility matter, and what are some tools to help build flexibility. So, Kristine, do you want to start with an opening question?
Yeah, we have this really fun tradition, Lisa. Before we dive in, we'd like to start by asking all of our guests, what's your earliest school memory?
Okay, so it's a hard question for me. I when I think about my earliest school memory, I think about the emotion of how I felt in school, which was very anxious. From the time that I was pretty young, school was like not a place that I loved going to. I was very fearful in school. I was very anxious in school. So I have a lot of memories of sitting on the teacher's lap, of crying. I do remember this memory from 5th grade, which was much, much older, but where when we came into our classroom, we had this great teacher who ended up teaching at Bank Street School for Children, where I got my master's. And when we came into the classroom on the first day, everything was just like all over, the furniture was all over the place. There were drop cloths down. And he put us in groups. None of us knew everybody. He put us in groups and he gave us paint. And he just said, you're painting all the furniture in the classroom. You're going to paint the bookcases. You're going to paint the dresser, the shelves, everything. Paint however you want to paint it. And I never forgot that because I just thought it was so brilliant. It was like we were team building immediately. We were getting to know each other at the same time. It was an icebreaker. You're painting, it's relaxing. So that's a strong memory that I have of a positive.
What a cool teacher to do that. How amazing. That's a great memory. I never knew that story.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
And what grade was this?
That was 5th grade.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And the confidence he had to say,
yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah. And it's funny because as teachers, you know how fastidious we are about making sure that everything is set up ahead of time, organized, labeled, everything's in its place. So it was like to walk into a classroom that was completely the opposite. And his whole point was, this is our room and we need to make this how we feel we're going to be comfortable learning here. So let's paint all the furniture. Let's make it our own. He even let us set the room up with him. Where should the furniture go? Where do you want the desks? What's going to be the most comfortable learning environment for you?
And did it feel like it was contained? Did it feel like chaos or how?
No. I remember it being very relaxed and very fun. And yeah, it was great. Sam Bryan, that's his name. I'm still in contact with him.
You are?
Yeah. Facebook friends.
That's amazing.
I nominated him for Teacher of the Year. That's incredible. Well, let's define flexibility for our listeners. What we've been researching is that flexible thinking is the ability to adjust your thoughts, feelings, or actions when something changes, when a plan falls through, or when someone sees things differently from you.
And in contrast, there's rigid thinking, which says this is the only way. Flexible thinking says there's other options and I can adapt.
Sam Bryan, he had flexible thinking, right? How do our students feel comfortable? So Lisa, how do you help students start to develop that skill when something unexpected happens?
Okay, so first, I think it's important that we're just using the word a lot and saying the word out loud and saying words like flexible thinking, you're being flexible, you're practicing flexibility. I think it's important to always be looking for examples of flexible thinking in the students from day one and then point it out, highlight it, define it, and just call them out and say, Charlie, I love how you were able to use the green crayon instead of the purple crayon. That was really flexible of you. I noticed when you were upset, you saw that we had to stay inside for recess today, but then you realized that you could play with the magnetiles and you got really happy, and that was being really flexible. So I think it's just important to recognize, define, and point out examples of flexibility, and then model being flexible also, because as teachers, we thrive on routine, structure, repetition, and it can be easy to forget that we might be unknowingly creating an environment where we don't change things up enough. So looking at changing your hello song, changing a familiar routine you have in the classroom, these things can help teach flexibility. And then you're really modeling it. And you can say it out loud to the kids. You could say, I really loved our old Good Morning song, but I'm going to be flexible and I'm going to listen to a new song, and I bet I'll learn to love that as well. So we also use the social thinking curriculum by Michelle Garcia Winner, and there's a series called the Superflex Theory series that has characters called Rock Brain and Superflex, and it just creates a fun way to animate rigid and flexible thinking.
It's so cool because we've all, as kindergarten teachers, even though we're not in a special ed classroom, we all have levels of flexibility and inflexibility with our students. And so it's so important to do those things, to change things up. And you can see right away who the students are who are like, that's not on the schedule, or why are we doing that? I'm like, because we're being flexible. So on the flip side, what does rigid thinking look like in a student? And how do you, like, when it shows up, how do you guide them towards more flexible thinking?
So I think rigid thinking looks like getting stuck, not being able to move forward. A child refuses to try a different way of doing something or resists a change to the point that it upsets them a great deal and they can't move on. So again, I think when they're in that state, it's really helpful to label what's happening and to say to them, it looks like you're really mad that we have to stay inside today. I don't blame you, which validates their feelings. You love playing in the recess yard. I know it can be hard when something changes. Can I help you figure out a fun thing to do inside? You can also point out what other kids are doing. Sarah, I love how you were able to get unstuck from your bad mood and find something fun to do. You're being very flexible. And, just by pointing that out, helping them transition from their bad mood into something that could be fun for them. But I think it's also important that we realize that the kid who's a rigid thinker might not come around as quickly as we would like. And he might spend the whole indoor recess period pouting or sulking or even tantruming. And I think it's important to say, it looks like you're really having trouble being flexible right now, and that's okay. Let's find a quiet place for you to be. And maybe next time we have indoor recess, you'll be able to have more flexible thinking.
You can't expect that just because you're giving them an explanation or naming it or narrating for them that they're going to be like, oh, okay, I'm flexible now.
Yeah.
So it is. It's a process for sure. But that's so important to think about, that it just takes time, just understanding, naming it, and then processing it.
I was going to add too, I love that you didn't dismiss the feeling. We're not always going to be happy. We're not always going to like change. But to say, yeah, I can see you're angry today, and maybe it'll, be a little bit different tomorrow.
Totally. Let's talk a little bit about why flexibility matters. So we teachers say it's practically part of our job description, but from your perspective, because it is a huge part of what we're teaching our kids. But from your perspective, what does flexibility really look like in the classroom?
So a classroom is definitely a place where you have to be very flexible for many different reasons. First of all, there are a lot of transitions. So I think flexibility looks like being able to handle the transitions. and being able to shift from one activity to another. There are also a lot of changes that could occur, like sometimes you can't go outside for recess. Sometimes there's a substitute teacher. Sometimes the internet goes down. So flexibility looks like being able to handle those changes. And it doesn't mean that you're not upset or disappointed or angry that something has changed. But being flexible means that you're able to acknowledge those feelings and move on and still be able to function. So flexibility requires forward motion and not staying stuck in the rigidity and the rigid thing.
It's so relatable. I mean, it's funny because as a kindergarten teacher, there's so many times where we do have to pivot and switch gears. And sometimes we have those days where we don't like it either. It's not easy. Some days it's easier, but oftentimes you have to really lean in to that part of it. So it really does apply.
There's nothing more challenging than when it's some weather issue going on and you need to be inside and then the power goes down and your smartboard doesn't work. And I'm like, no. But on the outside, I was like, these things happen and I just have to rethink, what can we do? Let's take a deep breath. We have to be flexible and pivot all the time.
My students are used to me saying, okay, so plan B.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. It's like talking through your being uncomfortable with it is important modeling for them. You don't always have to make it all wrapped up perfectly with a little bow on top. It's like you can say, oh my God, I can't believe this. I had a whole thing planned for you guys on the smartboard, and now the smartboard's not working, and that really makes me uncomfortable. But I'm going to just go with it, and we're going to take some deep breaths. And so that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, and when you think about flexibility in your students, what are some of those small everyday moments that show that they're learning to adapt? Those big little lessons that make you smile as a teacher?
So I would say that anytime that I see kids who are able to get themselves out of a momentary tantrum or a moment of digging in their heels, or anytime kids allow themselves to be led through these difficult moments to get to the other side, I know they're learning to be flexible. So when Charlie is able to go to PE class in the morning instead of the afternoon because there's a schedule change, I know he's using flexibility. And when a kid doesn't fall apart because on Friday, instead of triangle pizza, it's a pizza bagel, I know she's using flexibility.
I love that, a pizza bagel versus a triangle pizza. But yes, absolutely.
Could be a very big problem.
It could be a very big problem. I mean, just a side note, I raised two kids in my house that were very inflexible as children. And it was like, if it was the wrong shape pasta, it was not getting eaten.
Yeah. Forget it.
Time to take it out and get the right. Oh my gosh. Well, let's connect this to autism. Flexibility can be especially challenging for kids with autism. What are some of the ways you support students when changes, even small ones, feel overwhelming?
So yeah, kids with autism often have a very difficult time with transitions, rigidity, and change. Routine and repetition create feelings of security, and when that gets upended, it can be really dysregulating and overwhelming. So in our classroom, we try to change things fairly frequently so the kids have practice dealing with the changes in a safe environment. We will change the songs we listen to during morning meetings. We will change the way we walk to certain places in the hallway. We'll change their seats at the table. We'll change the books on the bookshelf. We try to only change one thing at a time and give the child warning that it's been changed. So we had a little boy last year who would become extremely upset when we changed songs during our morning meeting routine. And so we would write on an index card, I will listen to a new Hello song today. And we would show this to him during arrival time, and we would prep him. and he would read it. We'd go over it a few times. He would like already be screaming, just reading the index card. And we would put the new song on, and he would be screaming and crying, and we'd be telling him what a great job he was doing listening to our new song. And after about a day or two of upset, he would adjust and he'd be fine with the new song. And eventually he stopped having outbursts altogether when a new song was changed. And we were able to change 3 songs at once after a period of time. So we would change the hello song, we would change the season song, we would change the weather song, and we would just give a lot of positive reinforcement, a lot of praise, a lot of forewarning, and just provide space and time for the adjustments to occur.
What a win-win. I mean, all of that to, okay, 3 new songs, let's do it. That's huge.
It's huge. Yeah. By the end of the year, the teacher that I worked with towards the last weeks of school, she was literally changed every single thing. And we would sit there like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Is I would say, wow, you're really playing with fire here. No, but he was so used to it by the end, and he no reaction, and we would just makes you feel so happy.
So happy. I think one of the things you said really resonated just about the safety of the environment, the children feeling safe, the children feeling comfortable, because that's such an important piece in order for them to practice becoming flexible. It's so important for them to feel safe, right?
Yeah. And it's important also as a teacher, like when you see them getting so upset, some people would have the reaction of, okay, I'll change, we'll change it back. We'll go back to the other song. Don't worry, we'll go back. But it's like so important that you don't do that. Like that's really crucial that you don't do that.
You're building that tolerance. That's incredible. It's powerful to see how teaching flexibility helps, like just past even the moment that you're in. So how have you seen those skills translate into greater resilience or confidence? So that little boy who learned to tolerate different songs, but it also moved him forward with other things as well.
Yeah, I mean, you could see that like he went from a state of being so physically upset to just being relaxed, comfortable, happy, smiling, even laughing. And I just think that the more flexible kids can be, the happier they are, because being resilient means being capable of coming back from being upset and making the most of your situation. So I've seen kids start pointing out how they were able to move on and be flexible. And you can see it from their body language. You can see their temperament, that they've increased confidence with their flexibility skills.
That's powerful. Well, let's move into the section about tools that teach flexibility. You mentioned before how impactful the social thinking curriculum can be. Can you walk us through how you use it with your students?
Yeah, so it has a lot of different components to it. The one that speaks the most to teaching flexible thinking involves the characters that I talked about before, named Rock Brain and Superflex. So Rock Brain is the rigid thinker, and Superflex is the flexible thinker. The curriculum has stories that we read to the kids about the 2 characters. We talk a lot about the personality traits of the characters, and Superflex is presented as a superhero. So being like him is highly desirable to the kids because it means you're acting like a superhero. So after they have a good understanding of the characters, we're able to say things in the moment of upset, like, looks like you're being a little rock brain right now and you're stuck. So let's call in Superflex to help get you out of this. And we've just seen a lot of success with it.
That's great. I love that. I'm going to use that in my classroom.
I know. So are they picture books?
Yeah, it's You have to go on and look. It might be out of print, but you can find copies of it. But yeah, there are hardcover picture books. But I mean, honestly, even if you can't get your hands on the books, you can just talk about the characters. You could print out pictures of them. In kindergarten, it's just, you keep it so basic and you really just teach, this is rock brain and this is what rock brain is like. And you can give examples. You can even make up your own stories of, and what would rock brain do in a situation like this? Oh, well, then what would superflex do? So there's a lot you can do with it. And then I've seen kids eventually, they start using the language and you'll say to them, you know who you're reminding me of right now? And they'll be like, rock brain. Yeah, you're acting a little like rock brain right now. And they'll be like, yeah, we need superflex. Yeah.
It's so good. It's because they're so concrete, right?
Yeah.
They love the Superflex character because it helps them. It really does help them shift gears.
Yeah.
So it's perfect.
I think it's good for everybody. When you think about it, it's not just we adults can get stuck. I remember those too for myself. We all have rainy day recesses moments where we have canceled plans or traffic jams or days that just don't go our way.
Like, well, sort of like planning a picnic and then it rains, right? So if you're rock brain, you might say, my day is ruined. But if you're Superflex, you might say, oh, we can have a picnic in the living room.
Yes. Lisa, do you have a favorite story where a student had that aha moment? Well, we heard from about the one with going to 3 songs a day. But can you think of another aha moment where flexibility really clicked?
I would say that I know that with kids who are verbal, when I hear them kind of saying things to themselves like, well, that's okay, or I'm okay in a moment of change, I know that flexibility clicked. Sometimes you're walking down the hallway to get to the gym and you have to go a different way because there's some kind of emergency happening in one of the hallways. And if a kid is willingly going in that direction and not pulling you towards the other way, that flexibility clicked, right? So
what about for nonverbal kids?
Yeah, for nonverbal kids, it's that same type of thing. Like if their body is going with the flow, they're walking the direction you want them to walk. They're not having outbursts. They're allowing change. They're allowing you to walk to the indoor recess room instead of the recess yard. It's just looking at what their bodies are doing.
Good to know.
So interesting. So, Lisa, what's one thing you'd like parents or teachers to remember about teaching flexibility, especially when life feels unpredictable?
So I would say that it takes time to teach flexibility, particularly for kids who have a hard time with it. It doesn't just happen overnight. So you have to keep teaching it. You have to keep modeling it, pointing it out. It's not a one lesson deal. It starts from day one. I think it's really important to remember that every kid is different in their ability to be flexible, and some will shift quicker and some will take longer. And it doesn't mean it isn't working if a kid takes longer. Mm-hmm. So lastly, you have to be willing to ride it out with them. You can't not make changes because you're afraid to upset the kids. So you kind of have to view the upset as the way through the change. So like we call it in special ed, we call it an extinction burst. So when a kid is extinguishing a certain type of behavior, they're going to have an extinction burst, which it's going to look like a huge outburst, a huge tantrum before they can reach a state of acceptance and being calm.
Wow.
That is brand new for me. I'm writing all these little notes down because I try to avoid stuff that I don't want to deal with. But you make such an important point. You have to go through it in order to get to the next side.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, and I think also the tie-in, Jenny and I were just having a conversation about development. It's like 2 steps forward, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And then the 1 step back is like a big step back. And then you go forward a little bit.
Is there a simple way that families can stretch that muscle at home? And, every child's different. Every family dynamic is different. But is there some practical, simple ways that families can help stretch that muscle?
I think that you can, at home with your kids, you can always state the plan as it stands and what your expectations are for the day, but then you can always let kids know what the backup plan is. So you can just say, so the plan is that we're going to go to the park and we're going to have a picnic today. However, there's a possibility that it might be raining. So if it's raining, here's what we're going to do instead. You can involve them in the backup plan. You can ask them, what do you think we should do if it starts raining? And just make sure that they always know that there's a chance that things won't work out the way that they're planned. And, that there are other things that can happen if those things don't work out.
Love that. I think
and then if all else fails, call in Superflex.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about personally, like your life when flexibility wasn't a choice, but a necessity. Like what surprised you most about yourself? Probably going back to what we were talking about initially at the beginning, perhaps, like your journey.
Yeah, I think a lot of times in life, things happen unexpectedly. And if big things happen, then flexibility is a necessity and it's not a choice. So there have been a lot of times in my life where I've had to be flexible. But again, like I said in the beginning, just making the decision to live with a altered body definitely required flexibility. And I think that what surprised me most about it was that I was able to do it without completely falling apart. And I was able to flip the narrative to, oh, well, okay, this is just my next adventure. Like I've lived this many years with boobs, and now I'm going to live the rest of the years without it. And how cool is that I get to experience like 2 different body types in my life? Kind of flip it to a more positive, situation.
Yes, change the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I was recently talking with my oldest daughter. We were just reflecting on situations that have been going on in the different seasons of her life in particular, good times and not so good times. And we realized your life is never problem-free. You are always going to have problems.
Yeah.
And in terms of flexibility, if you can go, well, you're never going to be problem-free, but it's how you said flip it. I loved in the book, you mentioned your mantra was, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
Because that's what we say too. We're like, this too shall pass. When we're frustrated about something, like this too shall pass. Have you seen a different way of approaching just in terms of your personal life and your work life, the term flexibility?
I think it's about the same. When we were younger, when we were growing up, nobody was like naming it, right? We were just like, just go with the flow. Everyone would tell you, go with the flow, roll with the punches, like just deal with it. Life has changes. You got to just go along with it. And that was like the way of teaching us flexibility. And I think I still say those same types of things to myself. I think as I get older, I just realize more and more how important it is to be flexible and to try to flip the narrative. Because if you don't, then you're just like annoyed and frustrated all the time.
Yes. Yes.
It doesn't ever really feel like a loss, but more like a freedom, wouldn't you say? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think there's a tremendous freedom in being flexible. I think the where there's not a lot of freedom is in being really rigid, because then you're like really stuck, and that's totally the opposite of freedom, in a prison of your own making.
And again, how you want to be flexible, but not giving up your core values. Do you ever have any sort of challenges with that?
Being flexible, but not giving up your core values. I mean, flexibility is definitely one of my core values. It's really, really important to me to just be able to be flexible and open-minded. How I do it without giving up my other core values, I don't know.
I know it is a tricky question. I guess it comes back to our lifelong journey of knowing who you are, where you are, and honoring yourself and what is working best for you at that moment.
yeah.
Because there's just sometimes when you're like, I've hit my max. I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, then sometimes it might feel like you're just giving in, but you have to be flexible, but it just makes it easier.
Mm-hmm.
It is a balance, for sure.
Yeah, it's a balance. I mean, sometimes being flexible means doing something you don't want to do.
Mm.
Yes.
Right.
You get, as we say in kindergarten, you get to.
Yeah.
You don't want to? You get to.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you have to go visit that person that you didn't really want to visit, or you have to do something you didn't want to do. And you have to that's also flexibility.
It is flexibility. And then having within it, and this is for how long we'll go. And so you have an boundary around it.
Yes. Yes. I think in terms of your question, the core value question, it's like allowing yourself to know that you're going to have to be flexible at times, meaning doing things you don't want to do, but then balancing that with lots of things you do want to do for yourself. Right? So don't plan an entire day around things you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Make sure that somewhere in your day, it's more heavily weighted to the things you do want to do. And then maybe you're doing like one thing that you had to be flexible about.
That is such a good takeaway. I love that, because you know how many times I have days where I'm like, oh God, I have all this to do.
Yeah. Like don't book yourself back to back to back with like too many things that are going to make you feel burnt out.
Well said.
Well said.
So yeah, flexible thinking and having a balance and plan out good stuff too. Yeah. All right. Well, as we're wrapping up here, let's go into a speed round. We ask you some short, fun questions and then just answer the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready, Lisa?
Sure.
All right. Here we go.
What is your go-to way to reset when your day goes sideways?
So I would say that I take a lot of deep breaths, and that's usually my go-to way to reset myself in the moment, because I'm usually working. So I don't have a lot of time to just meditate in the middle of the day. Just lots of deep breaths.
A classroom moment that instantly makes you smile.
So I think it's the moment that I talked about earlier, where that little boy was able to tolerate all those changes and be laughing about it.
Coffee or tea while lesson planning?
Decaf latte with oat milk.
Yeah.
I want one right now. One word that describes your teaching style.
Responsive.
That's a good one.
What's a recent flexibility win? A moment you pivoted and it turned out great.
Okay. So I usually, this just might sound just a little crazy to some people, but like I get very routine about my meals. And I usually have a shake with protein powder in the morning for breakfast. But since when the weather's getting colder, I don't like having a cold shake. And I get very uncomfortable at the idea of changing what I'm having for breakfast. I'm vegan, and so I worry about how I'm going to get my protein in if I'm not having the shake. So I decided to instead have oatmeal and put the protein powder in the oatmeal in the morning, and it's going great. It's a win.
It's going great. I love that. If you could tell your younger teacher self one thing, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that she's doing a great job and don't be so hard on yourself.
Amen. All right. What's bringing you joy right now? Big or little?
Big or little? I like my pajamas. My pajamas, my bed, tea.
Being cozy.
I love being cozy.
I saw someone post yesterday. They said the week between Christmas and New Year's, all bets are off, and that pajamas are actually for us women doing all sorts of stuff. Pajamas are considered business casual.
I know. I've been hearing a lot about this. Is like the first year I'm hearing all this stuff about the week between Christmas and New Year's, which was always, it's so true. I never really thought about it like in such concrete terms as everybody's naming it, but it's like everyone is saying all these things about it now. Like there's no calories. You can eat whatever you want in that week. Nothing counts. Yeah, you can stay in pajamas. It's just like this weird, like no man's land.
It's a reset of be a kid yourself. No, take everything off your plate. I love it. I think that's a flexible win in my book. So, all right.
True. Should we move into the final part, which is one of my favorite parts, which is when we talk about our big little lessons?
Do you want me to start or do you want?
Sure, go ahead. What's your big little lesson, Jenny?
Well, it really hit me when Lisa, you were talking about the importance of practicing change and that's what builds your flexibility muscle, and do one thing at a time and just build on it, whether it's for yourself or for your students or your family members. To me, it's like, it's so obvious, but I have never named it. And so for me, that's, you think, oh, well, this is the way this person likes things. But it's like, well, but we all have to build flexibility and building change, just like you did with your protein shake to oatmeal. Naming it and then practicing it is really a big deal. How about you, Kristine?
So many good things. I think understanding your own threshold for flexibility, and not only your own threshold, but the people in your life, whether they be students or children or your husband or people in your family, and how you can help them move to the next level or be more tolerant and more flexible. I loved when we talked about in the classroom naming it. I think Jenny touched upon that, just naming it and explain, like narrating to yourself what's happening and reframing it when you're struggling with it. So I think that really resonated with me. But it was so many great things today, Lisa.
Oh, yeah. Do you have a big little lesson, Lisa? Not to put you on the spot. You don't have to answer. The one who's given us all this great information.
Oh, my big little lesson. I think that talking about flexibility in this way I started out when I first started thinking about doing this with you guys, I was really thinking only really about teaching flexibility, what it looks like in the classroom, what it looks like for the children. I don't often really sit down and think about what it means for me. It's just like something I feel like that I live, but I don't really name it that much for myself. So I think my takeaway is to do what I do for the kids, do it for myself.
That's great. I love it. So we like to give some little optional homework for our listeners. So listeners, what's a small daily practice that helps you stay flexible when life feels uncertain? So think about that this week, like something small that you can practice that helps you feel flexible when life feels uncertain.
Mm-hmm. Another option is, what's a recent flexibility win? A moment you pivoted and it turned out great. And it doesn't have to be big things. It's little tiny things. So think about,
The open.
It can be oatmeal. Yes, it can be oatmeal.
But thank you so much for being here and for sharing your heart and your experience and your friendship. I know you and Kristine go back decades, but I feel like I know you now through your book and from our time together. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it was great.
It's been so fun. Listeners, please see the show notes to order Lisa's book, Flat as a Pancake. I believe it's on Amazon. You will absolutely love it.
Lisa's book is awesome, and I couldn't put it down. I've read it twice. I highly recommend it. So join us next Tuesday, and thank you for listening to Big Little Lessons.
Also, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please email us at teachbiglittlelessons@gmail.com, also included in the show notes.
And remember, we are a classroom, we are a community. We might not have all the answers, but we do have a lot of experience.
Yes, we do.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.